Yo, what's up, guys? It's Noah here, breaking down the NBA slate on Draftkings and Yahoo for Friday, January the 24th. We're going to cover Friday's 10-game slate, big slate for Friday night. Going to go through the slate position by position, just talk about the plays that stand out to me the most, taking a first look. I am recording this video on Thursday night, so these are just kind of my early thoughts on the slate. We do have some injuries we need to watch heading into Friday. A lot of questionable guys. Trey Young, questionable. Drummond's expected to play, although he's listed as questionable. But like Jimmy Butler's a big one. We'll need to watch that. He's questionable. Jason Tatum as well. Malcolm Brogdon's going to be out, so we'll talk about that. Bagley is expected to be out. Michael Porter Jr. questionable. Jaylen Brown, we don't know his status. Steven Adams is questionable. So there's a lot of injuries we need to watch heading into Friday. As we go through each position, I will try and touch on these injuries just as we go, who I like if said guy's out, who we could look to target. Just before we do get started, guys, I would appreciate it if you would drop a like down below. If you are new to the channel, if you have not subscribed yet, would definitely appreciate it if you would hit that subscribe button, click the notification bell, so that way you do get notified every time I upload. You'll never miss out on any of my new videos. Also, you can follow me on Twitter. Link down below is my Twitter account, @DFSByNoah. I'm very active over on Twitter, so if you want to give me a follow, would also appreciate that. You can also check out my Patreon content. I do have a lot of exclusive content going up on Patreon throughout the day. I do post these videos on YouTube the night before, so all these videos I record the night before the slate starts. But throughout the day on Friday, I'm going to be putting up content on Patreon. I'll have my article up in the afternoon. I'll give some updated core plays. Once we get some updates on these injuries, I will definitely have updated core plays on Patreon. I also have a Discord chat that you can join where we're talking through the slate just throughout the day. I'm answering questions, just trying to help you guys build out the best possible lineups that you can. So if you want to check out the Patreon content, would also greatly appreciate that. You can see all that I have to offer over there. But let's go ahead and look at point guard for today. We'll start off at the top. James Harden, the most expensive option on today's slate, 11,100 in a really good matchup against the Timberwolves. So James Harden's actually not been great lately for fantasy. You just look at the game log. His last 4 games, 37, 52, 51, and 44 Draftkings points. Then you go over to Russell Westbrook and you look at his game log. Like Russell Westbrook has just been on an absolute tear lately. 69, 60, 70, and 69 Draftkings points. Contributing in all categories, getting a ton of rebounds, double-digit rebounds in 3 of his last 4 games, double-digit assists in 2 of his last 4 games. He's also scoring a ton as well. I think given Westbrook's increasing price tag, his game log looking a lot better than Harden. Harden's going to come in at lower ownership than he should be. On a 10-game slate, I don't expect Harden to be that popular, even with his price tag coming down. So I do like him quite a bit in tournaments today. He's 11-1, which is a very favorable price, especially for this matchup against the Timberwolves. These are 2 of the fastest-paced teams in the league. The Rockets rank 4th in pace this season. The Timberwolves rank 7th in pace. I don't know if we have a line on this game right now. We actually do. 234.5 total, so this game does right now have the highest total on the slate. Definitely going to be a game to target. I do like James Harden quite a bit in tournaments, especially with how poorly he's played recently. That's going to keep his ownership down. Like, I think it was a short slate. I don't think it was a short slate last time they played, but I know Harden was really low owned on the last slate. I assume he's going to continue to be low owned with his game log looking so bad, with Westbrook playing so well. People might honestly pay up for Westbrook over Harden, but I think that is quite a mistake. Like, I would not do that. If you're going to play Westbrook over Harden, I would do it on Yahoo. There's a $10 difference, which is quite a bit of savings. I think given the savings, Westbrook makes plenty of sense, but on Draftkings, like, they're just so closely priced. Harden's still been the much more productive player this season in terms of fantasy point per minute. Like, he averages like 1.6 fantasy points per minute. Westbrook averages like 1.3. I still prefer to go to Harden, especially if he's going to come in at low ownership. But, I mean, both guys are pretty appealing in a really fast-paced game against the Timberwolves. Trey Young, though, is the big injury we need to watch at point guard. He's questionable. He was out on the last slate. If he plays today, I think at 9,400, Trey Young looks like a great spend-up option on today's slate. We know this guy's going to play huge minutes if the game is close. Even if the game blows out, like, they're still giving Trey Young big minutes, even in blowouts. He's been so productive this season. He has the ball in his hands a ton. He's obviously a threat for, I mean, I wouldn't say he's a threat for a triple-double, but he can definitely give you a big double-double, like 40 points, 12, 13 assists. Like, he could easily go for 60 Draftkings points. Going to see some Chris Paul defense, which isn't great. I mean, Paul's a solid defender, but Trey Young's just so good. He's so involved in this offense. I really like him at 9,400 if he plays. And honestly, he's probably my favorite pay-up option today. Talking DraftKings at point guard. Like, if I'm going to pay at point guard, Young's my favorite guy to go to, assuming he plays. If he's out, we'll talk about some of the guys I like in the case that he's out. But like Booker, Fox, at their salaries, I don't have a ton of interest in them on a 10-game slate. I think SGA makes plenty of sense on Yahoo. If you go over to shooting guard, you look at this position, he's $31 in a really good matchup against the Hawks. Like, if I'm going to play SGA, it's definitely going to be on Yahoo today. I think he is underpriced over there. Like, this dude has just been incredibly consistent. At least 37 fantasy points in like 7 straight games. 7 straight games for SGA with over 37 fantasy points. Like, he's getting you what you want at $31. At that price, I'd probably want SGA to put up 40 to 45 fantasy points. He can easily do that in a really good matchup against the Hawks. So I do like him quite a bit. We will talk about another guy I like for a little bit cheaper, but SGA is a very solid option as well. But that guy that I do like for a little bit cheaper is Fred VanVleet. So if we go over to Yahoo, you do have VanVleet at $30 at shooting guard. You have SGA at $31. I mean, just looking at the position the night before, I can already tell you, like, these are two of my favorite shooting guards to target on Yahoo. Right now, I think I side with Fred VanVleet, especially when you look at their last game versus Philly. VanVleet pretty much had the chains taken off of him. 41 minutes last game against Philly, and that was in regulation. No overtime there. He played 41 minutes in regulation, 22 points, 5 rebounds, 8 assists, and 1 steal. Had 40 fantasy points. Like, I think VanVleet gets back to playing 36 to 38 minutes a night, if not more. Against the Knicks, there's obviously a little bit of blowout concern here, but the game's being played in Madison Square Garden. The Knicks are at home. Really, right now, at least what I'm seeing on Yahoo, they're only 7-point dogs, which isn't that bad. Like, I like VanVleet a ton at his $30 salary on Yahoo. It's great to see that he was back to playing his full amount of minutes. Him and SGA look like two great plays at shooting guard. On DraftKings, they are expensive, $7,800, $7,700. They're still in play for me. I just think over on Yahoo, that's where I'm going to be looking to prioritize them today. In this mid-range, though, at point guard, I do want to talk about Kimble Walker. So Boston, for sure, going to be a team we need to target, or probably going to want to target today. If you look at their injuries, Jason Tatum is questionable heading into Friday's slate, and Jaylen Brown is also questionable. Enes Kanter has already been ruled out. So Jason Tatum picked up like a groin injury late in that game against Memphis. He picked up the injury, and literally like 2 or 3 minutes later, the news came out that he was not going to be able to return. So it was pretty quick deciding that he wasn't going to be able to return for that game. I think given how like soon they ruled him out last game, also I was reading some reports that he was like still sore. We should get some updates after shoot around, so obviously we'll monitor this heading into Friday, but I'm going into this slate assuming Jason Tatum is out. And we can look at the numbers this season with Tatum off the floor. There are going to be some clear beneficiaries here. Obviously, there's a chance that Jaylen Brown's out as well, so that's just going to open up even more usage for a guy that we'll talk about. But this season with Jason Tatum off the floor, getting to Kimble Walker, he's the guy I really like here. He's played 328 minutes with Tatum off the floor, 31% usage rate, averaging 1.3 fantasy points per minute with a near 24% assist percentage. Leads the team in usage out of all the guys that actually get minutes. Like, I mean, you got Taco Fall down here with like a 34% usage rate, but Taco Fall's not going to play. So I love Kimble Walker at his salary today. I'm going into this slate assuming Tatum's out. There's a chance that Jaylen Brown misses as well, which would make Kimba an even better play. Kimba's definitely a guy that I've been wrong on a lot this season. It seems like whenever I play him, he sucks, and whenever I don't play him is when he goes off. Luckily, I wasn't too heavy on him last slate against Memphis. I did like him, but he wasn't like a core play for me. I think there was a slate earlier this season. I think it was either the Detroit game or the Chicago game. I played him one of those days, and then the next day he went off for like 58 fantasy points against the Bucks. Regardless, though, I like the increase in usage for Kimba, the increase in just overall opportunity with potentially 2 guys out, potentially 2 starters out for the Celtics today. They're definitely going to be a team we probably want to target, and Kimba's the guy I want to build around. 7,500 against the Magic. I mean, it's not the best matchup. The Magic play at a slow pace. You look at pace this season, they are 28th in pace. In terms of defensive rating, I believe they're middle of the pack in defensive rating. Let's see here. Or they're actually towards the top of the league. They do rank 7th in defensive rating, but if Tatum's out, like Kimba's just going to have the ball in his hands so much, going to have the opportunity to take 20, 25 shots, and that puts him in play for me, especially because his price tag really didn't see a bump. I mean, he's still $32 on Yahoo, $7,500 on DK. Definitely a viable option to look to. But then other point guards we can maybe go to. A really good matchup for Chris Paul. Never a guy I feel like I have to roster, especially on a big slate like this with 10 games. But the matchup's really good, so I did want to mention him in that mid-range, 7,400. Drew Holiday, his price has come down quite a bit. He's down to 7,400 on DraftKings. Had a disappointing game against the Spurs, but he's not going to put up 25 DK points again. Most nights you're getting 35 to 40 DK points from Drew Holiday, if not more. If the game's close, we know he's going to play big minutes. He's still been like a 1.2 fantasy point per minute player this season, I believe. Maybe 1.15, something in that range. At 7,400, not the best matchup against Denver, but with all the injuries to Denver right now, this is definitely not the same team in terms of defense. Not nearly as good defensively. So I do like Drew Holiday quite a bit as well. Kyle Lowry still really stands out to me on DraftKings. Only 7K. He saw 35 minutes last game against Philly. Saw his full amount of minutes. Was not productive at all, just 24 DraftKings points. But he's still underpriced on DraftKings. I mean, 7K for Lowry. This is going to be a guy that plays like 36 to 38 minutes most nights. Most nights he's going to give you 40-plus DraftKings points, if not more. Against the Knicks, you could easily see Lowry put up a big game. So I like him quite a bit at his DK salary. John Morant you could look to as well, but I think I would slightly prefer Lowry at the same price range, or at the same price tag, I should say. If Jimmy Butler winds up out, I think Goran Dragic at 6K we could look to. Dragic is also questionable, so this will be something to monitor. Now, DraftKings did bump up his price. I mean, it's not like he's dirt cheap. He is 6K, so it's not like he's going to be a free square or anything, but he's very productive with Jimmy Butler off the floor. He does pick up more usage off the bench, so I would have some interest in him. Same with a guy like Kendrick Nunn. Obviously, if Jimmy Butler's out, the Heat, just in general as a team, are going to become more appealing today. Even if Jason Tatum's out, and even if Jaylen Brown's out, I don't really know if I want to go to Marcus Smart. He's just not a guy that I roster that much. Really, I only target him when Kemba's out and he gets starts at point guard. Whenever he plays alongside Kemba, he just doesn't have the ball in his hands as much, just isn't able to do as much offensively. He's 5,900, so he's not completely out of play. I just don't think I'm going to be going there. I'd rather target guys like Kemba. If Jaylen Brown plays, I really like him. We'll talk about Gordon Hayward when we get to small forward. I'll have some interest in him as well. So I don't really like Smart that much, even with the injuries, even with the potential injuries to Boston today. Dejounte Murray burned me on the last slate against the Pelicans. His minutes are always up and down. Some games he'll play 30 minutes, some games he'll play 24 minutes. That's what makes him sort of a risky play. He's still cheap though. He's 5,100 against the Suns. He's had success in this matchup this season. If he gets 30 minutes, he could put up 40 DraftKings points easily. He's always a really good tournament play, especially when he's underpriced like he is. So I do have some interest in Dejounte Murray. But I do feel safer going to a guy like TJ McConnell, especially because we already know that Malcolm Brogdon is going to be out today. TJ McConnell does look like a very solid value option. 4,900 on DraftKings. He's very affordable overall on Yahoo as well, only $13 at point guard. So with Malcolm Brogdon out today, I do expect TJ McConnell to get the start at point guard. Whenever Brogdon got hurt last game against the Suns, McConnell did start the second half in place of Brogdon. Whenever Brogdon got hurt, I think McConnell was the first guy off the bench, if I'm not mistaken. I believe Brogdon got hurt right at the end of the second quarter. So regardless, McConnell was the guy that replaced Brogdon. Finished that game against the Suns with 40 DraftKings points in 27 minutes. McConnell has always been a very productive player when given minutes. He can score. He can definitely rack up assists. He can easily give you a double-double in terms of points and assists. This guy could easily go for 30 DraftKings points, if not more, especially if he gets the minutes, which I expect him to get the minutes with Brogdon out. Assuming he starts, he's a really good value play. It's a really good matchup against the Warriors. He's going to be chalky, but I think that's chalk I'm fine eating today. I definitely like TJ McConnell as a value option on both sides. Now, if Aaron Holiday winds up starting and we get that news before lock, I don't know if we'll get that news because this is the last game on the slate. This is the 10:30 game. Don't know if we get that news before lock, but be ready to swap. McConnell is 4,900. Holiday is 4,500. I think on Yahoo, Holiday's cheaper as well. Yeah, Holiday is $10. So, if you want a global swap there, if you're playing a lot of lineups and you have McConnell in the guard spot or the point guard spot, you can just global swap to Aaron Holiday. If he winds up starting, just make sure you're around your phone, around your computer, during that time, just in case McConnell doesn't wind up starting. In that same price range, though, you do have Jeff Teague, who he burned a lot of people on the last slate, including myself. Everybody was on him. He was one of the best value plays on the slate against the Clippers. With Trey Young out, he got the start, played 25 minutes, was not productive at all, only had 18 DraftKings points. But if Trey Young's out again and Jeff Teague starts again, I'm just going to go right back to him at 4,800. I expect him to start again and play 25 to 30 minutes, if not more. He's going to be much more productive than he was on the last game. I mean, he shot 1 for 7 from the field, 1 for 2 from 3. This is a guy that can give you a double-double in terms of points and assists, especially if he's getting more minutes, which obviously if Trey Young were to be out, the minutes would be there for Jeff Teague. So that's a guy I'm going to be keeping my eye on. I do slightly prefer McConnell, even if Trey Young's out. I think I'd still rather play McConnell over Teague, but you could play both guys together. I wouldn't mind doing that at all. And then maybe paying up at power forward or paying up at center, which is definitely viable today. But I think that's it for point guard plays. Reggie Jackson, first game back from injury, he had a pretty big game in limited minutes, played 19 minutes against the Kings and had 36 DraftKings points. I'm not going to chase that. If he's going to still be limited again, especially with the other plays we have, with potentially Jeff Teague, TJ McConnell, with these guys in that same price range, I'll just let other people chase that Reggie Jackson game. I won't be going there, especially with his price tag coming up. So let's go ahead and move on to shooting guard now. Looking at shooting guard, talking about guys I haven't already mentioned. You do have Zach LaVine at the top here, but I don't think this is a slate I'm going to really go out of my way to play Zach LaVine. There's just guys that I like less. I'd rather save $1,000 and play SGA or play Fred VanVleet. Don't really love Booker against the Spurs at 8,700. I think there's other guys I'd rather target as well for cheaper. Obviously, you could pay for Harden, who should be low owned today. I don't know if I'm going to be prioritizing him in my lineups unless we just get a ton of great value, kind of like we did on Wednesday's slate. But he's obviously in play. I just don't think I'm going to be paying up his shooting guard that much today. My favorite options here are for sure SGA, Fred VanVleet, Jimmy Butler going to be a key injury to watch. If he plays, don't have a ton of interest in him. If he is out, though, obviously that'll open up guys that we kind of already talked about. With Kawhi coming back, really don't want to play Lou Williams. He burned me on the last slate, but probably won't be going there today. Jaylen Brown, if he does play and Jason Tatum's out, I actually do have quite a bit of interest in Jaylen Brown. He's only 6,600 on DraftKings. He's been a very productive player this season with Tatum off the floor. Averaged over a fantasy point per minute, second highest usage rate on the team at 27%. Definitely would have interest in Jaylen Brown. He would become a really solid option. I think he's cheap on Yahoo as well. He's $28 on Yahoo, so not as good of a play. Honestly, if I can find $2, $3, I'd rather play VanVleet or SGA. But on DraftKings at 6,600, I do like Jaylen Brown quite a bit if he plays today and if Tatum winds up being out. Like I said earlier, I'm going into this slate assuming Tatum's out, and if I need to make changes, I'll post updates over on Patreon and my Patreon content. But then you have the Heat guys here. Kendrick Nunn you could target if Jimmy Butler's out. Kevin Huerter, I'd be fine going back to if Trey Young's out again. Didn't have that great of a game, only 27 DraftKings points, but played huge minutes, 36 minutes, was able to get up 15 shots. Huerter sees a boost with Young off the floor, so he would definitely be in play for me. I don't think he'd be a core play, but would be in my player pool for sure. Other than that, though, there's not much that stands out as shooting guard in terms of value. I don't think you can't play McConnell here. I don't think you could play Aaron Holiday if he winds up starting, but that's probably it for shooting guard. Jeremy Lamb, his price tag has plummeted on DraftKings, but he's just not doing much offensively. He does see a boost with Malcolm Brogdon off the floor, but you just never know what kind of production you're going to get from Jeremy Lamb. I think if you were to target him, today would probably be the day to do it, especially because Brogdon's off the floor. Let's take a look at the Pacers' usage this season with Brogdon off. I'm pretty sure Lamb's been a fantasy point per minute player, but we can check that real quick just to make sure. There are a couple beneficiaries with Brogdon off the floor. Brogdon is the second highest use, or he does have the second highest, if not that. I think he actually leads this team in usage this season. But Jeremy Lamb played 349 minutes with Brogdon off the floor, close to a fantasy point per minute, 0.93 fantasy points per minute. He sees a 0.6% bump in usage, a little bit of a bump in his fantasy point per minute rates as well. So in tournaments, I think taking a shot on Jeremy Lamb makes some sense. If he gets 30 minutes, he could easily blow this price tag out of the water. His minutes are going to be up and down for sure, but lately, blowout against Phoenix, blowout against Utah, was able to get 31 minutes against Minnesota, and had 32 DraftKings points. He's a risky option, but I'm fine taking the risk on him. Like, if I'm building out one single lineup in tournaments and my lineup's like really chalky, I think playing a guy like Jeremy Lamb in that lineup as a low-owned play makes a ton of sense. If I'm looking to take down a tournament and kind of win first place, you got to have at least one guy that's low-owned, if not two. So Lamb, I would for sure look to there, especially if you're wanting to pivot off some of the chalky value guards like TJ McConnell, potentially Jeff Teague. Lamb could be a guy you look to. But yeah, let's go ahead and move on to small forward. We'll talk about this position. So at the top, you do have Kawhi for 10,300 against the Heat. We do already know that Paul George going to remain out for this game. Kawhi is in play for me. I just don't think he's going to be like a core play in this matchup against the Heat. I mean, this is not a great spot. The Heat are really good defensively. If Jimmy Butler is out, I think it becomes a much better matchup for Kawhi. But still, I think there's other studs I'd rather play today. Like, honestly, I'd rather play Harden for a few hundred more, especially if he's going to come in low-owned. I like Towns against the Rockets. I like Jokic against the Pelicans. Trey Young, if he plays, I like a ton at 9,400. We'll talk about Sabonis later on in the video, who I really like. If Trey Young's out again, you could pay up for John Collins. So I don't think Kawhi's going to be a core play for me. Honestly, don't think I'm going to be paying up at small forward that much today. Like, you got Brandon Ingram, Jimmy Butler you could look to here. DeMar DeRozan, really disappointed last game against the Suns. Gets the same matchup today. Price tag came down a little bit on DraftKings, so if you were going to roster him, like, I think he's fine to go to at small forward for 7,900. But I just don't think I'm going to be paying up that much at this position. Just don't like any of the top options here. I don't feel like I need to go out of my way to play Kawhi on a 10-game slate when he's in kind of a tough spot against the Heat. If he goes for 60 DraftKings points, honestly, in tournaments, like, you might be able to make that up elsewhere. There could be guys cheaper that score 60 DK points today. So let's look at this mid-range, see what we can find here at small forward. If Tatum's out, really like Gordon Hayward at 6,800. Although his price skyrocketed on DraftKings, it makes sense that it did. I mean, he's been like a 1.2 fantasy point per minute player this season with Tatum off the floor. So I would have a lot of interest in Gordon Hayward. Jaylen Brown, you can play a small forward, who I would like as well if he's able to play today and Tatum's out. Not much in this 5K range that really stands out, especially in terms of like core plays. I don't see any core plays here. For value, you do have Jeremy Lamb you could take a shot on for 4,400, which I like to do in tournaments. I would like to do in tournaments, I should say. But I think that's probably it for small forward plays. Really nothing that stands out here besides like the mid-range. I think this is a mid position. I like the mid-range. Brown, Hayward, pretty much the Boston guys I like here. I like targeting here. And if you want to take a shot on Jeremy Lamb in tournaments, I would like to do that, or I'd like doing that as well at 4,400. But let's go ahead and move on to power forward now. We'll talk about this position. So at the top of the power forward spot, you do have Domantas Sabonis, most expensive power forward on the slate. I love him today, 8,600 against the Warriors. I think this is a spot where Sabonis can have a ton of success. He will see some defense from Draymond Green, but I still think that's a matchup Sabonis can win. I mean, this guy has been like one of the most productive players in fantasy this season. I mean, his game log is one of the most consistent game logs you'll see. I know he's had some disappointing games, 2 of his last 10. He had 19, 21 DraftKings points in those 2 games against Utah and Minnesota. It sucks that I was on him those 2 days. I was pretty heavy on him those 2 days. But then I was heavy on him on the last slate, and he kind of rewarded me. 49 DK points in 34 minutes against the Suns. I think he was on pace to play like 37 minutes in that game, but it blew out. So he did come off the court a little bit early. Like Sabonis, he's going to get 35, 36 minutes if this game is close against the Warriors. Being played in Golden State, I think this game does stay close. Right now, we don't have a line on this game, but I imagine like Golden State's probably going to be maybe 3-point dogs, 4-point dogs. Should be a close game. Should get our full minutes from Sabonis. You look at his usage this season with Brogdon off the floor. He has a 24% usage rate. He's averaged nearly 1.3 fantasy points per minute, 21% assist percentage, 21% total rebound percentage. Those are elite numbers for a power forward. I love Sabonis today. One of my favorite plays. His price came up on DraftKings, but I think that's a good thing. I think that's going to keep his ownership down. On Yahoo, he really stands out over here because his price actually went down. He's down to $35, but I still think he's a top option on Yahoo as well at $35. I really like Domantas Sabonis today. But then you could go to John Collins, especially if Trey Young remains out. put up a 67-point game against the Clippers last game with Trey Young out, played 36 minutes. Don't expect that again, but the minutes should be there. He'll get more opportunity, just more shot attempts, more usage if Trey Young's off the floor. So you could look to him, but if he's going to come in high owned, like he was 30% owned on the last slate, like if he's going to be 30% owned and Sabonis is going to be like 10% owned, like I would just much rather play Sabonis over John Collins. But then Pascal Siakam, another guy I want to talk about, very similar to Fred VanVleet. He kind of had the chains unleashed off of him last game against Philly, played 34 minutes, finished that game with 44 DraftKings points, had 18 points, 15 rebounds, 3 assists, and 1 steal. He shot pretty poorly from the field, 34% from the field. One thing that's very encouraging to see, though, he took 23 shots in that game. He was 1 for 8 from 3, so he shot very poorly from 3 as well. Like, imagine if Siakam even makes like 45, 50% of his shots in that game. Like, he could have easily put up 50, 55 DraftKings points. Now that he's getting the minutes, now that he got 34 minutes last game, I expect he gets 34 to 36 minutes today, if not more. It's a fantastic matchup against the Knicks. Siakam was able to put up 47 DK points in only 30 minutes against the Knicks earlier this season. I love Siakam today, 7,700 on DraftKings. On Yahoo, he's still pretty expensive. He is $37, so I think over there, probably would rather save and just play Domantas Sabonis at 35. But on DK, that's where Siakam really stands out. I was on him on the last slate as sort of a low-owned play, and he did come in I think he was under 10% owned on the last slate. Given that he had a good game, I don't think he's going to be that low-owned today, but still Siakam's $1,000 to $1,500 too cheap. Like, this is a guy that we were paying nearly $9K for earlier this season, so we're still getting him at quite a bit of a discount. Definitely want to take advantage of that, especially in a matchup against the Knicks. But then other power forwards, Hayward I talked about, you could play him here. I think with the injuries to the Kings front court, no Marvin Bagley, no Richaun Holmes, Nemanja Bjelica, especially against the Bulls, really good matchup. You could definitely play him at 6,700. Jaren Jackson Jr. as well at 6,600. I'd be fine going to. He's been on a little bit of a heater recently. He had 28 DK points. I know he started off really hot in that game against Boston. Lost minutes because of blowout, but when this guy gets the minutes, when the game's close, like he can put up 40, 45 DK points. Feel a little bit better about Bjelica, but Jackson Jr. or Triple J definitely a play. Zion is someone worth talking about. So we don't know yet what his workload's going to be. He played 18 minutes, first game, NBA debut, played 18 minutes against the Spurs, had 34 DraftKings points. I watched quite a bit of that game, and Zion was doing terrible in the first half. He had I think 8 DraftKings points in the first half. I'm pretty sure he didn't wind up scoring. He didn't score his first basket till late in the second quarter, but then he just went on an absolute tear in the third quarter. He scored 16 points in 3 minutes. Just got really hot, started making a ton of threes. I mean, he was 4 for 4 from 3. I don't expect him to shoot that well again, but if he's going to play 25 minutes, maybe even close to 30, I don't think he's going to play that much, but we'll just have to wait and see. If they're going to give Zion 25 to 30 minutes, I do expect him to be a very productive player when he's on the floor. He's probably going to be a 1.2, 1.3 fantasy point per minute player. I mean, 25 to 30 minutes from Zion at 6,400, he would definitely be in play, but obviously we're going to have to wait and see in terms of his minutes restriction. Hopefully we get some news on that before lock. I assume we will. If he can play close to 30 minutes, I do like Zion quite a bit, but we'll just kind of have to wait and see there. I assume, though, given he only played 18 minutes last game, he probably gets 22 minutes today, if that. I mean, they could still limit him again. I mean, with his injury, or with coming back from that injury, he could play, I think he played 4-minute stints. That's what they were planning on doing in the last game. I think he played a little bit more than that. This game, he could probably play 4 or 5-minute stints, or maybe 4 6-minute stints, maybe get 22 to 24 minutes. We'll just kind of have to wait and see. But other power forwards we could maybe look to, with Malcolm Brogdon out, TJ Warren does get a small boost. It's $6K. You could go to him, but definitely not a core play for me by any means. Jeremy Grant had a big game last game. Gets a really good matchup again today against the Pelicans. Don't think he's a core play by any means, especially with his price tag coming up. I know he's been really cheap on Yahoo. He's up to $19, so still wouldn't consider him a core play there as either. But the matchup's really good, especially with Mason Plumlee out. I expect the minutes to be there for Jeremy Grant. Obviously, if Paul Millsap remains out as well. Grant's a fine option in that mid-range, but still wouldn't be a core play for me at his salary. With Drummond expected to play, I don't really want to go to Markieff Morris or Christian Wood. I think that's it for power forward in terms of like cheap value plays. I don't think there's any punt options here. If Jimmy Butler's out, then James Johnson could be an option. He had a big game against the Kings with Jimmy Butler out. Played 29 minutes, had 40 Draftkings points. He's cheap. He's 4K. You could definitely look to him as a valuable. We'll kind of have to wait and see there. Derrick Jones Jr. as well would open up as a value option if Butler's out. But let's go ahead and talk about center. We'll hit on this position just real quick before we end the video. So at the top, you do have a lot of intriguing options at the top of center today. You got Towns against the Rockets, Jokic against the Pelicans, Drummond against the Grizzlies. All these guys getting fast-paced games or getting to play in fast-paced games, pace-up spots. Towns facing the Rockets. Looking at pace this season, the Rockets are second in pace. Jokic against the Pelicans. Pelicans are fifth in pace this season. And then Drummond against the Grizzlies. The Grizzlies are third in pace. So a really good spot for all three of these guys. It is tough to decide between these three. I was very heavy on Karl-Anthony Towns last slate. He had a decent game. Wasn't great for his salary. Put up 51 Draftkings points in 31 minutes. Had 40 points, which was great, but didn't contribute much with the peripherals. Only 6 rebounds and 2 assists. Did have a little bit of foul trouble in that game. He picked up his 4th foul like early on in the 3rd quarter. I think he lost like 3 to 4 minutes because of that. I assume Towns gets 35 to 36 minutes if this game stays close, which it should against the Rockets. For what it's worth, he put up 56 DK points in 32 minutes against the Rockets. And I'm pretty sure, like, looking at past history, like, he always seems to crush the Rockets, especially, like, looking back at last season. So in terms of expensive centers, I would say Towns is probably my favorite option. On Yahoo, you have Drummond 49, Towns 46, Jokic 43. Still would probably go to Towns there, especially because he should come in low owned today. As the most expensive center, I think that's going to keep his ownership down. So really like Karl-Anthony Towns. Jokic against the Pelicans, you could obviously target as well. That's a very favorable matchup for him. Last game against Houston, 34 minutes, 54 Draftkings points, had a triple-double. I expect him to get a ton of usage, to continue to get a ton of usage with no Jamal Murray, potentially no Millsap, Gary Harris, Mason Plumlee, Michael Porter Jr. Like the Nuggets are just so injury depleted right now. They're going to need Jokic to play huge minutes. If this game is close, like there's a chance he gets nearly 38 minutes. So Jokic is a great option as well. I think ranking the top 3 centers, I would rank them in the order they are. Towns number 1, Jokic number 2, and Drummond number 3. But if I'm playing a lot of lineups today, I want exposure to all 3 of those guys. Choosing one, though, if I'm only playing one lineup, I think I'd side with Towns as my favorite guy to go to. But just in this mid-range, potential plays here, like Clint Capella against Towns, I like that matchup. Towns not the best defender. See how Capella did against, or he actually hasn't played against the Pelicans, or against the Timberwolves this season. He was out the time they played earlier this season. But I mean, at 7,600, like it's really hard for Capella to disappoint at this salary. If the game's close, he's going to play big minutes, going to get you probably 15 and 15, if not better. So he's in play for me in the mid-range. LaMarcus Aldridge as well, I do like quite a bit against the Suns. Finally erupted for a big game, 59 DK points, had 32 points, 14 rebounds. Shot really well from the field. Don't expect him to shoot nearly like as good as he did in the last game, but it was good to see Aldridge finally shook off the rust a little bit. I do like him in the mid-range. Like this mid-range of center is just really strong. You got Capella, Aldridge, Joe Val against Drummond. I love that matchup. Drummond's just been terrible defensively lately. This is a spot where Valanciunas could absolutely dominate, especially if he gets the minutes, which in a matchup against Drummond, I think they're going to need his size. So if we get 30 to 32 minutes from Valanciunas, like he's a very good mid-range option at center. $29 on Yahoo. I like him a ton over there as well. Steven Adams, a big injury to watch. If he plays, he's a fine option against the Hawks, but if he winds up being out, I think we definitely need to talk about Nerlens Noel. Noel's only 5,100. He would be a very strong value play at center. Last game with Adams out, he got 30 minutes, 27 Draftkings points, was pretty productive. Could have had a better game. If he gets a few more rebounds, he gets the double-double bonus. Like, he was still pretty good for his salary. It's a fantastic matchup. I do like Nerlens Noel quite a bit if Steven Adams is out. Skipped over Derek Favors, but at 5,900, if we're going to get like 25 to 30 minutes from Derek Favors, definitely in play at 5,900. Wouldn't consider him like a core play by any means, but he would for sure be in my player pool. Even with Enes Kanter out today, I don't really know if I want to go to Daniel Tice. Like, I expect Tice gets the minutes. He probably plays 28 minutes with Kanter out. It's not the best matchup against the Magic. Tice was incredibly productive last game against the Grizzlies. 33 DraftKings points in only 19 minutes. I don't expect him to be that productive today. Like, if Steven Adams is out, I would rather play Noel for a little bit cheaper. If people are going to go to Tice and he's going to get some ownership because Cantor's out, I think I'd just rather look elsewhere. Like, Noel's a little bit cheaper. Even Marc Gasol against the Knicks. Miles Turner, he's actually been really productive this season with Malcolm Brogdon off the floor. Looking at his numbers, he's averaged over a fantasy point per minute with Brogdon off the floor, 21% usage rate. Miles Turner is very cheap, and against the Warriors, I like him a lot at 4,900. So there's just a lot of good center plays. I wouldn't get too invested in one guy at this price range. And then we have another guy that we can talk about. You got Dewayne Dedmon down here at 4,600. So with Marvin Bagley out, with Rashawn Holmes out last game, Dewayne Dedmon did get the start at center, played 31 minutes against Detroit, and had 30 DraftKings points. He was very productive, 13 points, 10 rebounds, and 2 assists. Just a very solid game from Dedmon. His price tag has come up a lot. He's up to 4,600 on DraftKings, but this is such a good matchup against the Bulls. Centers have killed the Bulls this season. This is a matchup I've targeted all season. If we're going to get 30 to 32 minutes from Dewayne Dedmon again, I still like him as a play at 4,600 on DK. I think on Yahoo, though, like, he really stands out on Yahoo. He's still minimum salary, still $10. Probably one of the best value plays over on Yahoo, at least as of now. Like, the Kings are just so thin in their front court. I'm assuming Dedmon continues to get the minutes, and he's still cheap on Yahoo, so love him as a value. Still like him on DraftKings as well. I think with this price tag actually coming up, that's going to make him probably low owned today. Like, he was pretty popular on the last slate at 3,100. I think now that he's up to 4,600, people might shy away. So I do like Dedmon as a value, especially given the really good matchup against the Bulls. But yeah, guys, I think that's it for center plays. I think we covered everything at this position. So hopefully you guys did enjoy this video. As always, I greatly appreciate you watching. Greatly appreciate you guys supporting this YouTube channel, coming every day and watching these videos. It really does support me more than you guys know. If you do enjoy, as always, you can drop a like down below. If you have not yet, you can hit that subscribe button as well. Click the notification bell so that way you do get notified every time I upload. Also, if you haven't yet, you can follow me on Twitter. Link down below is my Twitter account at DFS by Noah. I am very active over on Twitter, so if you want to give me a follow, would appreciate that. Also, you can check out my Patreon content, see all that I have to offer over there, get access to all my updated in-depth in-depth content, my article, updated core plays, get in the Discord chat. Just so much content goes up on Patreon throughout the day. Monday through Friday, I post NBA content over there. So check that out. If you enjoyed, like and subscribe. And I think that's pretty much it, guys. We'll see you in. Hopefully, I'll be back for Saturday. I'm not sure yet if I'm going to make a video for Saturday, but now the NFL's over, I will try and get more videos up on the weekend. So hopefully, I'll see you guys breaking down Saturday's slate. Until then, good luck tonight, guys. Peace.